Well, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Jonathan Stoner. I work for Trimble. And today we are going to be covering a webinar on the software ModeLogix. ModeLogix is a conceptual or budget creation tool that uses your historical data as a database to create an estimate. So this estimate would be very high level in generic terms. It'd be a pretty high level estimate, and something that you could use to when you don't have very many drawings to go off of, or early phase in design. And it would be really helpful to carry on the conversation once design gets to the next phase. So I'll jump right in. It doesn't take me very long to go through the software. If you have any questions along the way, you are muted, but you can put questions in the question box within GoToWebinar. If the panel is in the way, you can click the little arrow in the orange box and it will move it out of the way. And so you should be able to see everything that I'm showing today. The software isn't overly complicated, although there are some things that you might be able to infer that, oh, my data isn't prepared in such a way. So there might be some things that you're like, I wish my labor was organized this well, or I wish that I had work breakdown structures consistent through my projects, or something like that. But just know that we have a team of people that work with this stuff all the time, and they've seen it all. And we work with all types of different contractors, from GCs to construction management firms to trade contractors, as well as owners. You know, utility companies use this software as well to give themselves an idea of what to expect for their, the next expansion that they do on a warehouse, or transmission line that they own, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of different applications for the software. So let's jump right in. As you can see, I'm on the dashboard of the software. And so here in the middle of the screen, I have 5 buttons. The first one here is to import a WinEst estimate. WinEst is our database-driven estimating system, and it's detailed. So, that's where you use, you've got a full set of drawings and specs, and I want to break down pricing any way I want, and I'm going to do a hard bid, or a negotiated project or something like that, and that's what that software is intended to do. It can also do some early phase estimating and stuff like that based on, previous projects that you've done, but that's not its sole purpose. But it works hand in hand with ModeLogix. It was built by the same engineers, so you have the ability to transfer estimates from WinEst into ModeLogix, and I can take a conceptual estimate and I can push it back into WinEst. And I can compare that early phase estimate to all future estimates that I create based on design changes. And then, of course, we can import from Excel. So if you create your estimates in Excel, or you create your estimates in anything but WinEst, that's totally fine. If you can get your estimate into an Excel format, then you can import it directly into ModeLogix. It will take the structure. You can create a template to adapt to whatever structure your estimate is. It doesn't have to be an estimate. It can come from your accounting software. It can come from your project management software, anything like that. If you want to take final numbers on a project out of an accounting system, perfect. Do that. If you want to take estimate numbers out of your estimating system, great. Do that. But we don't restrict it in any way. So we allow you to do the import process however you decide to do it. And then create a model. We'll get to that here in just a minute. We'll go through and search our database and use criteria to narrow down our project listing to be able to create a cost model by that. And then search estimate. So that will allow us to go through and use that search criterion and search through the projects. So create model is just kind of, you create the model, and then I can go and drag and drop projects in. Search estimate is a better process. It's going to allow us to go through, use our smart categories, and go through parametrically and find projects that meet our criteria. Reports, so we can create as many different report styles that you want. If you have internal reports that you want to create, that is not a problem. You could also create reports that are going to go to a client, and if you have different clients that you work with, then you can create a report style that matches with what they want, including, if you design your estimates, you typically give a breakdown in CSI, 16 division, but then the owner wants it to be broken down in uniformat. You could have a report that just converts the conceptual estimate to uniformat, even though you've reviewed it all in CSI. So there's lots of different options when it comes to reporting and looking at the data however you want to as well. I have one person that's having problems with the audio. I can see that my audio is coming through the GoToWebinar. If folks could just click on the raise hand icon on the just to let me know that you can hear me, that would be great. Just click on the raise hand. This is a little hand feature. Click on that and let me know that you can hear me. Okay, so there's one. There's another. There's the other. Okay, so James, I'm sorry. I guess if you can't hear me, then it's pointless. So let me send this guy a quick message. Sorry about this. Let's just send him. Okay, so I'm going to carry on now. Sorry about that. Okay, so over here on the left-hand side, you can see that we've got this folder structure here. So we've got this content area. You can create folders for whatever you want. It's going to be going into a file tree here. And so I could see my estimates, and I can expand this out, and you'll see the estimates that are stored in there. Now, what I would do is I would create a folder underneath of estimates, and I would have categories in there, just so that I keep everything in order. But really, that's not the most important part, because those are going to be categorized anyway in the back end. The models is the area where I might want to take a look at things within a folder structure, and I want to see all of my high rises. I want to see my 3-story multifamilies. I want to see my hotels, my fire stations, my schools. I want to see those in specific folders. So my cost models, my budgets, everything, I want to see those within a specific sorting structure over here. So that would be one area where I would definitely make some adjustments on that. And then here's your reports area. You can see I've got a couple different ones. So we'll get to that near the end. You can, of course, trash projects. You can trash reports. And if you have, then they stay in there for 30 days as it indicates, but you can recover projects that you've trashed just like you would in an email or something like that. You could trash projects and bring them back in. Okay, so let's go through a couple of the setup areas within the system, and then we will we'll go ahead and create a cost model so you guys can see how that works. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning is that this is completely cloud-based. So all of your data will be stored in the cloud. So if you purchase the software, or if you already own it, you already know this, but if you purchase the software, we will send you a link to install a little applet, which is kind of your, it launches the software, and then it launches into this window, and you log in to your account, and then you'll have access to create, your own setup area, your work breakdown structures, your smart category questions, and all that sort of thing. So, but you'll be logging in and accessing your data in the cloud. So data storage has become very, very inexpensive these days, so we don't really limit the amount of projects that you put in here or anything like that. So that's not a problem at all. Okay, so let's go into the setup. And the first area that we come to is these cost indices. The cost indices are, okay, great. I'm glad you're able to hear me. The cost indices work two different ways, both with time. So if I'm going to be building a project out into the future, I can escalate the cost. But then I also need prices from in the past as well. So, I need to know what the cost index was from the 1990s, if I'm going to use projects from that, and to be able to compare that to pricing that's going to be built out into 2022 or something like that. So, we need a fully built out chart. As anyone that uses a time-based index, you would already understand how that works. You could also have a location-based index. In both cases, this is something that you import in. I have a couple of examples. One is RS means, and the other is ENR. We don't sell the indices through the third-party partnership there, but you can get those from them. Obviously, Turner has their own time and location-based indices that I've heard are very good, and so there's many out there. DCD Archives has one as well. You could go out and you could subscribe to any of these publications, and you'll be provided with the time and location-based indices. So there's lots of options out there, and it's just a text or Excel-based file that you import in, and it just imports directly into the system, and the math all works. And so you'll see how that works here in just a little bit. So that's the cost indice section. And then you have the ability to create categories. So these categories are the types of projects that you typically do. So if I collapse these down, you'll see that I've got 4 different, we call them industry segments. They're categories of projects, right? So if I build fire stations, I'm going to have a category for that. Now, when you think about something like, in this case, let's say corporate office, what's the typical information that I receive on an early phase project? Am I provided with information about how big the meeting rooms are? Am I provided with information about the interior gross square footage? I certainly hope so. Or the building footprint. We would expect to have that kind of information. Exterior shell material, maybe not. The text that's in black, you can indicate whether it's going to be required or not required. You'll see that right here. It says required, and what that means is that when you import a project in, you run it through your QC process to make sure that all the data is coming in the way you want, and then you can have questions that are required. I don't want this project in my database unless it has this information. That's basically what we're saying. Okay, so we would put that in as required. We import it in. It can't be published unless that information is filled out. Okay, and you'll have options to be able to import that data with all the rest of your cost data as well. So all those questions can be answered as you import them in. You'll see that right here. Input to the smart category is calculated. I can import the information directly into the system. So anyway, there's also the required question. You can see this one's checked. Okay, now, so what other questions would we ask? What about healthcare? So interior gross square footage, I might have that, I might not. I might have the building footprint. So, so I have that as required, but not the interior gross square footage. how many floors, how many beds, what's the exterior shell material, so these are kind of your questions that you would run through. Too many questions, you might reduce your results too much. Too few questions, you might end up with too many. So trying to find that right balance is a team effort. Okay, you might be the database administrator and the person that sets this whole thing up for the rest of your team, but trying to do this in a vacuum is a mistake. This has to be a team effort. So we have to review this, whiteboard it out, whatever you need to do. Figure out what's going to be the right balance of questions for the projects you're going to import in. You can manage all of your users right here. Obviously, I work for Trimble, and this is our Trimble account. So you can see all the people jumping in there. And then WBS tables. WBS tables is any type of structure that I want to set my projects up to, so I can sort them. I want to be able to sort by 16 divisions. Okay, well, you create the structure right here. And actually, all you have to do is create the heading. And then when you import the data in, you just say, where is that? And it will find it here in the chart. And it will import the entire structure in for you. All the codes, all the descriptions, everything will get imported into the project, and it will fill it in right here. Okay, and then you can use it on any of the projects that you're reviewing. Okay, so let's come back here and let's create a cost model. This doesn't take very long, and actually this entire webinar doesn't take very long at all. I'm typically done in about 40 minutes. Okay, so as I said, if you have any questions at all as I go along, feel free to ask. So let's jump in and go to search. So when we go to search, it's going to show us where all of our projects are on the map, and it's going to show us our entire listing of projects underneath. So as I scroll through, you see I don't have that many projects, maybe 20 or so, but it's enough to give us an idea of how the system works. To narrow this down, obviously I could just go through and uncheck the boxes, right, until I get to the right number of projects that I want to use for a cost model. I can do it that way. But if you want to use the system to its full potential, use the smart categories. So I can roll this down. So I just clicked on it, and it gave me the industry segments. Check the box here, and let's say I want to eliminate retail, corporate office, and apartment complex. I've got my healthcare area now, and so it's showing me all of my healthcare projects, and healthcare is listed underneath. If I click on that, it shows me all of those smart category questions that I had to answer for all of these projects when I published them. Okay, now I'm going to reuse them to define, based on the information I've been provided. I've been provided with information by the client. So the owner is saying, I'm going to build this hospital, this healthcare facility. It's going to have a parking garage, and it's going to have a masonry, and they could tell you these kinds of details. Maybe they give you 3 or 5 drawings, very early phase. And so I can use that information to then fill out as much of these details as I can. So if I go to the interior gross square footage, I check the box. I'm making it a requirement, basically. I'm saying I have this information, so I'm going to check it, and I'm going to use it to reduce my list down to, somewhere between, that's probably eliminating too many for right now, somewhere between 125 and 165. Number of floors, I could go ahead and move that. Of course, that eliminates everything. There we go. Okay, now I could continue to go down through the process, and if I had more projects to work with, I would continue to reduce my list down. The idea is the more projects you use, the more accurate your pricing is going to be. But what we typically see is that folks use 2 to 3 projects on average to then come up with their conceptual estimate. That's what we see. But I get questions all the time about, well, what if I wanted to use 7 projects? By all means, go ahead. It's just more data that you have to review. So when we get in here and we're looking at the numbers, you're going to see that even with just 2 projects, it's still quite a few numbers to look at. Not as many as if we were building a full-blown estimate, but it's still a lot of data to review. Okay, so we'll come over here up to the X, and it's going to ask me where do I want to put this new cost model. So we're going to call this the Detroit Health Center, and click OK. And it's going to pull all the data from the two projects that we've selected. It's going to pull all the numbers, any imagery that we've got, any backend data. It's going to pull it all together for us. And typically this takes about 40 seconds. So rather than filling the time, we'll just watch the loading bar go. Okay, there it goes. And it should bring me to a details page where I can fill in the information about our Detroit Health Center. So we can go here and we could say that this project is 145,000 square feet. It's going to be built, say, October of this year, let's say. And of course, it's going to be built in Detroit. Okay, and so it'll pull up the latitude and longitude of Detroit, Michigan. So then I could review it on the map as well, see where my projects have been built. Now the image here, I can click on the Add Attachment. If I have any type of imagery that I can use, let's say if it's just like a SketchUp model or some type of image, the cover sheet of the drawing, anything that we can use to maybe make our proposal look a little bit nicer. I have seen where some of our customers will actually just put their logo in, and they put their company logo so that shows up front and center on the cover sheet. And then the imagery for the past projects that they had, they have those show up. So it's kind of a neat idea. But for this example, I'm going to go ahead and use the image that I've got. Okay, and then we'll come back to our details section. I'm navigating across the top now. And click on the drop down and choose my image. Okay, and then here you can see the RS mean city cost index. So I can come down to Michigan. There's Detroit, and there we go. So I can work my way left to right. We'll come over here to the spreadsheet, and we're going to see our pricing broken down just initially here by 16 division CSI. Okay. Now I'll just explain a little bit about how this works. So I've got metrics, which is like, if I want to review labor costs versus subcontractor costs, or equipment and material purchasing, what it costs on those past projects. How much did I actually spend on labor per division if I wanted to see that. I currently only have quantity, total unit cost, percent of parent WBS, which is a pretty cool thing to review, and then your total price across the board. And then you have columns and rows. I can put data in two different places. So I can put uniformat here across the top, and then you'll see where within uniformat section A, how much is involved in site work, concrete, and Division 7 thermal moisture protection. So I'll be able to see what the costs are and breaking things down that way. Or I could pull it down into the row, and I could see them in a hybrid view where I'm seeing uniformat and CSI together within rows, and I can expand or collapse the different rows however I want to do it. Okay, so there's lots of different ways to review this information. I can pull in additional rows, additional tables, so I can see deeper into the details if I want to. We see this especially in our MEP users that use ModeLogix. They kind of want to use this system like they use their detailed estimating. So they bring in a lot of nuts and bolts instead of reviewing everything more in like a square foot pricing manner, unit prices and that sort of thing. They still want to see what the overall unit prices are, but they want to break down a lot more detail than our typical user. the system was originally designed with the idea that you would look at things at a pretty high level. You know, when we're looking at conceptual, it's like, okay, it's 140,000 square feet. We're going to do that for $30 a square foot, and here's your total price. Boom, done. You know, see you later. You know, that's kind of the high level, and then you can provide additional pricing on top of that. But you know, nothing gets very, very deep. But as you can see, I can add additional tables. I could even add an item table in here, and I would see the individual items. So I'm getting down to like the screws that go in the drywall itself, the tape and mud. I would be able to see all of that within here if I wanted to. But that's not the way I have my content structured here. And a lot of this data depends on where I'm importing it from. If I import it in from my accounting system, you know, I can bring in my job cost codes, and you'll be able to see that. Of course, there's going to be a lot more job cost codes than my CSI stuff. So, you know, there's all my accounting codes. But you know, unless your accounting codes also coincide with the way that you sort your projects, then you better compare that to what is in your estimate, the way you originally created your estimate. And if you've got it broken down that way, you might just want to try and run the report and update the pricing, the final pricing, before you import it in. We have seen users where they import everything in from their accounting system, and they don't have any other way to sort it by CSI and master format. That's a huge mistake. You know, you really need to be able to have a process to be able to pull all this content together, so it's easy to view, easy to manipulate, and easy to be able to distribute out to the client. Okay, so as many coding tables, WBS tables as we can get in here, the better. Okay. All right. Now down here, you'll notice 16 divisions. Most everything is by the 145,000 square feet. So this in blue is my conceptual estimate, my Detroit healthcare in Detroit, Michigan, 145,000 square feet, built in October of this year. This project here is in Illinois. This is in North Dakota. Different size projects, but relatively close in size. This project was built in 2010, 2008. So these are my contributing projects. And this is my conceptual estimate. My pricing here, my total unit price, will be an average of the two prices that are here, with the exception, well, my unit price is only going to change because of the quantity here, but you'll notice that this quantity on Division 3, concrete, is in cubic yard. So I've got 4,300 cubic yards. Now, how did that number come about? Where did that come from? Well, I had 4,600 here, and I had 4,100 there in this project, based on 155,000 square feet. This one's based on 140,000 square feet. And then ModeLogix will do the math and figure out, based on 145,000 square feet, I would expect to have around 4,300 cubic yards of concrete. It's a weighted average, okay? And that's one of the many examples of weighted averaging that will happen within ModeLogix. Okay, and that's called a control quantity. You can set up a control quantity on any one of your tables. So I'll show you another example. So here's a different table, and within my shell, I have square foot of contact area, and so that you know, the more control quantities that you have, that's more data that you have to import in. So if you plan on doing that, just make sure that your projects have that kind of data already included in them. So this project had 88,000, 80,000, 82,590 for this one. Okay, so just a couple different examples there of how the data works. Okay, now I can pull in labor, as I mentioned earlier. I can pull that over and review that along with all of the other pricing that I've got in here. So I've got my self-perform here within those categories there. Okay, I'll be able to see that for any of the metrics that I want to pull in. Over here on the right, you'll see 3 tabs: View, Calculations. So you know, you'll notice that I haven't adjusted any numbers yet. and that's because I really haven't adjusted for time and location yet. So I don't know really if my pricing is accurate yet. I want to get it close by using my time-based index. So we'll check that. There we go. And then I also need to adjust for location because it's going to be different to build in Detroit versus Fargo, North Dakota, and Oak Brook, Illinois, basically Chicago. So, you know, now my numbers are adjusted. Now I can use, you know, my head knowledge, based on what I know about my unit prices and stuff. And I can review these prices. I can see that this one here is $27.81. This one's $30.87. You know, pretty good difference there in unit prices. And especially since this project was a little bit bigger, why did I have a higher price, unit price, in thermal moisture protection? So what I might want to do is just go ahead and take a look at that. Maybe go back to the estimate and look and see why that number was inflated. I could pull in additional tiers here into my rows and dig deep into the thermal moisture protection. And so now here in thermal moisture protection, I've got waterproofing and all that sort of thing. So now I can dig and look at all of my pricing. I might be a little. There we go. So now I'm able to see all my pricing here in one place. Let's see. So I've got insulation here, 263. This is 292. And here's a big one. So 22 and 25. So I could see that there. So, you know, I could go back and look at that and say, you know what, we had a delay. We had a major weather delay. Part of that job happened in the wintertime, and that's right when the roof was going in. We had a major delay on that and increased our price. We had change orders. We had extra heating required or whatever, you know. So it inflated our price, but our original bid price was $23. I could change that right there. Now I adjusted it here, and it's really only adjusting it for this cost model. It's not going to go and back calculate, and in every project, every conceptual estimate that I use, the Fargo Children's Hospital, it's not going to go back and adjust all those. If that's a mistake, and I'm finding that I have to adjust that every single time, then I need to unpublish and delete the Fargo Children's Hospital out of the system, adjust that number, and re-import it in. That's what I need to do. Okay, so rather than having to adjust something over and over and over again, we would just go ahead and do something like that. Okay, so that will then change my average over here on this side. It will adjust my pricing, and I'll be able to see a tighter margin for error, or it's a tighter margin on my, the difference between those numbers. Okay, I also have history here. I can see every change that I've made to my projects across the board. Now, coming over to the markups area, I'll be able to see that I can add any markups here, just like you would expect in any estimating system. A lot of folks will either include all their markups as line items in their estimate, so they'll be able to adjust them right there, or they import all of their numbers as final numbers, and they just need to add contingency or fee or insurance or something like that on the markups area. But you could create markups for however you want to do it, apply it to whatever section of the estimate that you want. You could do it percent and lump sum and that sort of thing. So it's all pretty easy to go through. We also have the benchmarkability. Benchmark allows for us to do a sanity check. You know, I've gone through and I've reviewed my numbers. I've adjusted by just a visual inspection of the spreadsheet, and so now I want to maybe I have this project and I just weigh every single healthcare project that I do. I weigh it against that one, because that one was the best estimate ever, right? So I want to compare it against that. So I could do that. I can come over here to any of the cost models that I previously created. Maybe that was a really good negotiated project. We're doing that project. I could go ahead and grab it and I could drag it into this dotted box, and it will compare my cost model that I've done and do a variance report against it. So it'll give me a difference in price for unit price, for total price, for and as well as percent differences across the board. Okay, excuse me for just 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. You know, we can have a true comparison and give us a price difference. And so we'll be able to maybe get a little bit deeper into our analysis of our pricing and see, you know what, this project had, you know, this price built out this way, and the pricing was a little bit higher, and that really covered us, and that really kept us in the conversation, and we could explain why. Maybe we should adjust that here. So it's just a quick little sanity check. I can include it, I can pull it out, but basically it's just a quick benchmark to see if we're on the right track with the adjustments that we've already made to our estimate. Then we have statistics. So this gives you, you know, if you're into any kind of data science here, you'll have your mean, median, minimum, maximum ranges, standard deviations, all kinds of stuff here. And I'll be able to see that here. I didn't need to click on that, but so now I can kind of see how all this stuff will be laid out and all my pricing discrepancies and things like that. Now, here's where we really learn a lot about where our pricing sits. Okay, and this is one that we get a lot of feedback on from our customers, that clients love seeing this chart. Okay, and the reason is because it's sometimes hard to just look at the numbers. Sometimes it's easy to just see, where's the projects that you've done before, where do they sit, and where is my project? Where's my project? So this provides them with that kind of visual. Okay, and you know, right now I'm looking at this by total, and that's not really a good visual. What we want to see is whether our total unit prices are in line with each other. Okay, and I can see on my concrete that I've got a major difference between the Oak Brook Medical and the Fargo Children's Hospital. I can see that I've got a major issue. All of my other numbers are pretty tight, including the thermal and moisture protection that I've already adjusted. Now, those are right on top of each other because I kind of did that on purpose. Okay, so that's pretty easy to see. It's easy to review, and you know, if you could do this live in front of a customer, right? So the owner's asking you to make an adjustment, and you're like, hey, I think that's a bad idea. Let's not switch to, you know, precast panels. Let's not switch to tilt up. Let's not do that. You know, let's you know, whatever, right? So they give you some option, and you think it's just a bad idea. So you switch it, and then you pull up this chart, and you'll show how it will skew. It will pull your cost model out away from your pricing, or it'll shoot it up way above what pricing you've already done on your previous projects before. Imagine how the conversation could change then, because you've got this awesome visual that you can review that with them right then. Okay, and then we have this difference chart, which basically explains, it just gives you the numbers, right? I've got 575 you know, unit price difference in concrete, which explains this, why there's a big spread right here. I can see the dollar values here. This just kind of tells you what the numbers are on a bar chart. Okay, so pretty self-explanatory there. Okay, I'm going to skip over reports for right now. Notes, I can put in whatever notes I want, and if I've set up my report to show notes, you can have it show notes or not show notes. So if you do like internal notes and things like that, or if you have notes that you want the owner to see, no problem. You can put those in here, and you just generate the report that's going to show those notes in the place that you want them to be. Okay, so you can copy and paste those out of your proposal form and put them right in here. Any kind of legalese or anything like that, you can put that right in there. Okay. We reviewed the attachments area already earlier. I can literally attach anything in here. I can just use this as a file dump that it's all pertaining to my cost model. Okay, so I can put that all right in here. And then our reports area. So This is going to be shown in just a series of tiles. So however many reports that I want to create for different types of owners that I work for, different types of internal reports that I want to generate to be able to review with the team, I could just create a report for it. Pretty simple and easy. I can just go up, click on the report tile that I want to run, and it will pull the content together for this specific project. So now, as you can see, I have the image for the Detroit Health Center, and I have the imagery for the 2 previous projects that we built before. Okay, so I've got our company logo up here, but as I mentioned, we have customers that will actually, instead of, because they don't typically get any imagery for the project that they've been asked to price out, so they'll put their company logo right front and center, right in the middle of the front page of the proposal. So that can work pretty well as well. I'll scroll on down here, and you'll see that we have a table of contents that, it fills itself out. I just place it as a placeholder in there, and it will go ahead and show me what I'm about to see. So as I scroll down, you'll see here's our breakdowns, and you saw I was reviewing everything in CSI. The report reformatted it so that it's showing me in uniformat. That was a report preference that I had put in. That's how this style was created, was set to create my report. So and one thing here is this is kind of hard to see, and so what I could do, I could go ahead and click on this little dude right here, and it will switch it from portrait to landscape. And so now I'll have some pages which will be portrait, and other pages will be landscape. Okay, scroll on down, and now you're going to see here's that range chart that I could review with them. Now I have this one set up to show it to me in totals. Like I said, I think it's more meaningful if we look at this by total unit price, to make sure that, because total price is, if a project's bigger, the total price is going to be bigger in general, right? So that's a tough number to look at. So looking at total unit prices, looking at it by uniformat or some other view might be a lot easier to see. Now this is still kind of hard to see as well, so we could switch that over and look at it by landscape as well, and that'll be a little bit easier to review. Scroll on down, here is our cost model. Okay, and it's broken down by unit format. It's giving in our unit prices, and they're able to review that pretty easily. But then down here, we have our first contributing project. So our Oak Brook Medical Center, we're able to see what the prices were for that project when it was built in 2010. Okay, they can see that we've adjusted for time and location, so that it is as if we're building the project on their site. And as I scroll down here, this is where, we talked about that conversation, especially in conceptual estimating, where we need to be able to validate ourselves. We need to be able to say that, show that we know a lot about this project. These questions and answers can be used as part of that conversation to say, I built projects like yours before. This one fits the criteria that you gave us, and here's all the questions that we needed to answer. It meets up with the number of floors. It's in the range for how many beds you're going to have. It's concrete block. It's it fits with what you've asked us to price out. Okay. And so, the rest of the report is going to be the second contributing project and the questions and answers pertaining to that one as well. So, and then the other style of report that we can generate, and we can come over here to the spreadsheet, and we can push this report directly out to Excel, and then you could copy and paste it. You could put bar charts and pie charts or whatever you want on the data that you want to. You can run the calculations on it. If you want to do that, do something outside of the system, because we can't create the bar charts and things like that some people ask for in our report engine. But you could send it out to Excel, and you could do that there. Okay. As I mentioned, you could also push the pricing out to OneEst, which is our database-driven estimating system, and as I mentioned, those work hand in hand with each other. That is all I've got for you today. If you have any questions at all, I'll be happy to cover any additional information. If you don't have any questions, you are free to go at any time. I do thank you for your time. At the conclusion of this webinar, there will be a survey. So I would appreciate it if you fill that out. It helps us make sure that we're so I do have a question here. Let me answer that. You're welcome. Can ModeLogix connect to other systems through an API? The only way that can happen is through through an Excel. I'm not going to say that whether we can or can't. It's not, because of the way it's built. It would be easier to do that with, but I don't know how they give access to the backend data because it's built in SQL. So there may be some access points there, but I can't say for sure whether there'd be like a direct API. We don't currently have any API except through a takeoff software called Vico, which it handles 2D and 3D takeoff, and then through WinEst, which is the detailed estimating system. So those would be the two APIs. What is the cost? So there's the cost of the software. It's sold in, you start off with a 3-seat pack and it's $3,600 a year. Any additional seats would be $1,200 per seat per year. Okay, so it's a subscription because it is cloud-based. Okay, so highlighting the differences between WinEst and ModeLogix. So the differences are that WinEst is a detailed database-driven estimating system where I would build an everyday estimate. Anything that I need to price out, I can build it in WinEst. Anything. I was talking to a civil contractor yesterday. We were talking about underground utilities. The day before that, I was talking to a CM, and we were building a non-self-perform estimate. Building a high-rise. Okay, so anything that I want to build in WinEst, I can, and I can use a cost database for that. There's multiple cost libraries that come with that system. There's a starter WinEst database, there's an RS means, and a Richardson's database that comes with that. That's a cost library. Okay, ModeLogix, the main difference is that ModeLogix does not come with that cost library. You use your historical data to build your estimate in ModeLogix. Those are kind of the main differences right there. WinEst offers a lot more in the reporting side of things, but that's to be expected because we're talking about really detailed estimates. No problem at all. Not a problem at all. Okay, yeah, let me see. All right, James, if you want to ask your question, you will have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm the one that couldn't hear at the beginning, and so I just want a little bit better understanding about the background. We're going to use our own previous information and import that through an Excel sheet and build our own comps, if you will, and we'll be able to use that to inform our current conceptual estimates. It's the basic. It's the basic task of how we would be using ModeLogix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. Yep.
Okay. And then there isn't a, because I saw this nationally and we're more regionally. It doesn't come with comps that we can use as well. It's only going to be our own internal comps that we create from our own previous estimates.
That's correct, but RS Means and DCD Archives both have published public projects. Now, whether those numbers are escalated in some way, by the engineer or the contractor that published those, I don't know. I mean, if it was a public number, then you could totally use that number because it's public. It's public information.
Okay,
you can go to them and ask them about it.
You could just vet your line items, with your own history and with your own subs. I would suppose.
Yeah.
And my last question to that would be, so this, because I'm using my own historic information, can ModeLogix be used for interior renovations and sometimes a hospital will say, well, we're going to do a new cafeteria, or we're going to change all the bathrooms on all our campuses. I would just use I could customize things so it's not a new construction all the time. I could do this for renovations as well. Correct.
Well, yeah, if you have that data somewhere, and you import that in as part of your project data, if I'm doing a bunch of renovations, I need to have that somewhere in one of my projects to use. That's where ModeLogix would fall short of being able to just like price out something. That's where something like WinEst would come into play, or your estimating system that you would use for any other estimate. So if you have projects that you've done, or you've done a lot of renovations, you can import those projects in, use that pricing, and if you just needed a quick price, this price over the last 4 projects has been running about $4 a square foot for renovations. Then you could pull that together relatively quickly within ModeLogix.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, I think we can call it there. I appreciate all the questions. Very, very good session today. Sorry for the interruptions and things like that, but hopefully you enjoyed the presentation. If there are, I think I might have another question. Let me see here. All right, you are very welcome, everyone.